I try my best to learn from my mistakes. I do it often on here. I try to learn from others' mistakes too. And it's something that I think is really important about sports as fans and as a fan who is trying to cover the sport because it makes it more difficult for us being fans. Like I often force myself to question my original feelings and make sure that I'm being objective as I can. And I did it last week. I did a show on or a segment on the Ohio State offensive line. I thought I was dialed in on how I felt about the Ohio State offensive line. And then I listened to my buddy College Football with Sam talking about the Ohio State offensive line. He felt very differently. And it made me say, all right, let me sit down and question my original feelings on this. And I looked at every guy and I graded every guy out, and I hadn't done that before. And looking at it a little more objectively, I came away feeling that my individual rankings of those guys were probably lower than what I thought they would have been. But the way I feel about the unit remains very high. But this is a tough thing for us as sports fans. We all generally tend to overestimate what we have because we're more familiar with it and we want them to be good. And we underestimate what everybody else has. And that's why, particularly on here, when I'm putting my opinions on record in a way that people can throw them in my face, I try to make sure that I have serious conviction about something before I say it. Now, not everyone tries to learn from their mistakes. Not everyone tries to learn from their friends' mistakes. And sometimes not doing that can lead to some rather hilarious things coming out of people's mouths. And sometimes those hilarious things flame out publicly in wonderful fashion. And that happened last year, of course, with our friends up north. And they are setting themselves up for it again. Now, leading up to the season last year, they lost a ridiculous amount of talent. 13 guys drafted. That's fewer than Ohio State, by the way. But they did have more guys invited to the combine. If we're keeping score there, I don't know if there's any records that we're keeping about that in the rivalry. They had more guys invited to the combine. But they were very convinced that despite losing all that talent, they were a national championship contender. Despite losing all that talent and the entire coaching staff and Jim Harbaugh, they were absolutely a playoff threat. They were absolutely a national championship contender because they had Sharon Moore, a guy who worked for Jim Harbaugh, and he was just going to keep that magic rolling. A guy who on the open market would have been a candidate as a head coach for a low to mid-level Big 12 head coaching job. That is where he was as a first-year guy seeking out to be a head coach. That's what he would have commanded on the open market. Instead, he got hired at a blue blood, and that guy was going to take him back to a national championship in his first year. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Of course it does. And they can probably look at that now and say, yeah, that was probably ridiculous of us. But in the moment, if you said that to them, they thought you were just being a hater. It was just an Ohio State fan saying that, when really it was just someone looking at the situation objectively. It was an absurd notion, but they fought tooth and nail. It was delusional and amazing at the same time because us looking on the outside knew that's not what this team was going to be, and it was going to be quite funny watching them try to spin and cope it. And I don't blame them totally because they have one of the weirdest situations in college football up there, if not the weirdest. And that is they've got a media that follows and covers that team that is the strangest group of journalists you'll ever see in college sports. They got recruiting analysts telling guys that aren't recruited to Michigan to say go blue when they interview them, calling out kids that go to Notre Dame, calling them weirdos. Like, that's not normal. They got guys that cover the team that were involved in spreading ridiculous fan concocted rumors about Connor Stallions throughout that situation, Ryan Day and a RICO investigation. It's just a group of fanboys, and none of them wanted to get to the bottom of anything that happened there. They just wanted to deflect and act like fans do. And that's okay for fans. You expect fans to do that. You expect fans to overestimate their team and deflect and make excuses. You don't expect that out of the media, but that's what they got. But it didn't just stop with that. As far as the media being fanboys, they were pumping up that team and telling all of them what they were seeing and what they were hearing. And it was absolutely not just a Big Ten championship contending team, but a real threat to repeat as national champions. And the things they were saying in particular about one player, Alex Orji, were the epitome of them telling on themselves. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They were building up Alex Orji in a way that Michigan fans were running around saying Cam Newton as a comparison. The single most dominant offensive college football player of my life, Cam Newton. They had Cam Newton 2.0 that was going to pop up as their starting quarterback. And they went through all spring, all preseason camp, and their fanboy journalist saw what was happening at multiple practices. They saw the spring game. They interviewed the coaches, and they kept running around pumping everybody up that this was absolutely the dude. Cam Newton, here we come. So we get to the season, and Cam Newton 2.0 is not only just a good athlete, nothing special, but he can't throw at all. I mean, at all. Comically bad. So comically bad that the people calling him Cam Newton were calling for him to be benched immediately. And then they got mad at Sharon Moore instead of the bozos that misled them the whole time. Then they proceeded to watch the team that was going to repeat as national champions lose 5 games. Now, you would think that after a season like that, after being so hilariously wrong and embarrassed about Cam Newton 2.0, about the season, about the rookie head coach and the pieces surrounding him, that coming into year 2 with that same head coach, that the expectations might be a little more reserved, that they would maybe not want to so publicly embarrass themselves again. You would be wrong, because they got a couple transfers coming in. Now, we all know they have not done so well in the wide receiver department for some time. In fact, they mock Ohio State in wide receivers as not being able to, win. Of course, Ohio State just won a national championship, but the fact that they don't have any, they look at Ohio State and just like laugh at it. Okay, go get another 5-star wide receiver. Ha ha ha. I think that worked out in 2024. But it's been a long time since they've had a good one. Been a real long time since they had a Billet Keekoff Award winner. Well, they went out and fixed that. They went out and answered all the questions because they went out and got themselves a wide receiver from the wide receiver factory that is Indiana football. Could you imagine? Michigan football got the savior of the team transfer from Indiana. And this fella's name, Donovan McCulley. Donovan McCulley is one of these gems last year who did the thing that became a trend after the UNLV quarterback did it, where he's going to play 4 games and then sit out the rest of the season and take a red shirt and quit his team. He's one of those guys. So he sits out and takes the year off, decides to transfer to Michigan. And Donovan McCulley, who the year prior caught 48 balls for some 600 yards and 6 touchdowns, a pretty good college football receiver, certainly got some size, formerly a quarterback, sounds like a pretty good pickup for Michigan. He'll walk in, the guy with 48 receptions and 600 yards, of course, as their number 1 target. They think so highly of him, they gave him the number 1, which is a big deal up there. Now, it cannot just be Alex Orji has some potential. It's Alex Orji is Cam Newton. It can't be this team might have the potential to compete for the Big Ten championship. It's this team is a national championship contender. And of course, it can't be Donovan McCulley might be the best wide receiver we have on the team, might be the best wide receiver we've had in a couple of years. No. Donovan McCulley is...
Donovan McCulley is what I would call the ideal build for a wide receiver. He's 6'5". He has an immaculate vertical. This guy is ripped, which is incredibly important because you need grip strength to really win those battles when it's between you and the defensive back. I'm looking at the potential to be a Calvin Johnson if he had been more focused on the wideout instead of being a quarterback in high school. Those are all characteristics that Calvin Johnson had. He's the exact same height. If put on some extra weight, you got yourself a Calvin Johnson. And he has long arms and legs. Yes, this guy's built like a Calvin Johnson. If only he had somebody telling him that he would make a better wide receiver than a quarterback. But hey, Something inside of him knew, and he's used for a jump. He's a jump ball is nothing new to him, right? He has a basketball background. He played in high school. Braylon Edwards, 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, and was a third overall pick in the 2005 NFL draft. That three 1,000-yard consecutive seasons was an NCAA record at the time. He won the Billant Keetoff, what the heck is that name, award in 2004, and was selected again third overall in the 2000 NFL draft to the Cleveland Browns. And we all know that that's where talent goes to die. Sorry, Shador Sanders, you deserve better. That's just my opinion.
That's right. Donovan McCulley is Calvin Johnson. If only he would have played wide receiver in high school, he'd already be Calvin Johnson, and we'd all know it. And we know he can jump because he played basketball, got long arms and long legs. This is the most delusional sports fan base in the country. And watch the comments on here. Watch the comments, man, as we sit as the reigning national champions coming into a season with another loaded roster, top 3 talent in the country, a national championship winning head coach who wants to stay and coach the team, 2 of the 3 best players in the country, and they think they're going to say something about the game that's going to make any of us feel bad.
Calvin Johnson.
Calvin Johnson, here we go. By the way, Jay-Sean Barham was going to be Ray Lewis last year as well, and they're pumping him up again. So should be a fun one. Have a great day.